Hello, I am so happy that you clicked on this video today because I'm going to share with you a best practice that I follow on my boat to prevent and even limit accidents that I think is going to be extremely beneficial for you. Now, whether you're an avid fisherman or just a recreational weekend fisherman, having a good safety checklist as a best practice is essential because it can help you identify and correct any deficiencies that you may have from a safety perspective before it becomes a problem. Now, the first thing that I always check before I go out on the boat, I have a pre-trip safety inspection that I complete. And I created this checklist so that I have a list of all of these safety items that I could check one by one each time to ensure that I don't miss anything from a safety perspective. The first thing on the checklist is all of my paperwork. So registration for the boat, registration for the trailer, my insurance paperwork, and all of the different fishing licenses that I need from a commercial and charter fishing operation. I keep all of these in a binder, which I carry in a waterproof bag. So having all of these items in one location makes it easy to grab the bag, place it on the boat, and it ensures I'll never leave anything behind at the house. The second item on the list is the safety flares and distress signaling devices. I also keep these in a safety bag to ensure that I never leave it behind. So it's as simple as grabbing the bag and placing it on the boat, and I'm ready to go, and I know that I'm not forgetting anything because I put all of that in one location. Now, the number one thing that a lot of boaters face when it comes to your flares is the expiration dates. Now, this can be extremely difficult to keep track of because as you buy the flares, they're all gonna have different expiration dates on them. Now, a little bit later in the video, I'm gonna show you a very good solve for this. I'm gonna show you how to create an Excel-based checklist that you could create, have it on your computer, have all the expiration dates on it, and it will calculate for you how many days you have before that item becomes expired. This way, you never miss any of these important deadlines. The next item is our first aid kit. Now, we upgraded our first aid kit and purchased a more advanced first aid kit versus a traditional one that you would get at any marine store. And the reason for this is because if we ever have an accident on the boat that we need to utilize our first aid kit, we want to make sure that we have an expanded inventory of first aid items to be able to treat that accident. The next thing that I have on my list is my EPIRB. So an EPIRB is an emergency positioning indicating radio beacon, and when it's activated, it transmits your location to the Coast Guard. EPIRBs work in two different ways. So it works automatically, it has sensors on it, and if that EPIRB was in the water, let's say your vessel were to sink, the EPIRB will automatically send a signal to the Coast Guard with your coordinates, or you can manually activate it with a switch and turn it on. Now, once the Coast Guard receives this signal from the EPIRB, they know that there's grave and imminent danger to that vessel, and they immediately deploy a rescue team. When you purchase your EPIRB, you have to register it with NOAA. And when you register it, in the event that you ever needed to trigger that EPIRB, as soon as the Coast Guard were to receive that signal, they would know exactly who it is because it's registered to your boat, and it really helps them to identify which type of vessel, the color, the length, that they're looking for in this rescue operation. Now, an EPIRB is not required for recreational vessels like it is for commercial vessels, but I would highly recommend that everybody has an EPIRB on the boat, especially if you're fishing or navigating far from shore. Now, nobody can ever predict when an emergency is going to happen, but in the event that you ever had an emergency on your boat and you had an EPIRB and you were able to send that signal to the Coast Guard, I'm sure you're going to feel a lot better knowing that that signal was sent, received, and that help is on the way. Now, if you do decide to buy an EPIRB for your boat, just buying it and registering is not the last step. You also have to do a periodic test on the EPIRB, and it has a test mode function. You press a button and it will run through all of the different exercises that it would normally do if it was activated. And at the end of the test sequence, it'll tell you if the test passed, if it was good, or if it failed. So on our boat, we actually run a weekly test on the EPIRB. I press the button, I let it cycle through the light, the transmitting battery, everything to see that pass rating at the end, just to make sure that the EPIRB is functioning as it was intended to. Now, the next item that I carry on the boat, which is on my safety checklist to make sure we put it on there every time, is I carry a satellite phone with extra charged spare batteries. And I do this because I fish very far from land. I'm out of cell phone range, and a lot of times I'm the only boat that I could see all day where I'm fishing. Now, I always carry this satellite phone with the spare batteries in the waterproof bag so that I am ready to go. I know that it's dry, and in the event of any emergency or I need to communicate, I can easily activate the phone and call back home. Now, a satellite phone works in the same fashion as a regular cell phone would to place calls and send text messages, but it uses satellites to transmit your calls and texts. So this gives you a much wider range outside of traditional cell phone towers that has a range almost anywhere in the world. And like I said before, this is just an extra step that I do because it gives me a little bit more security to know that in the event that something were to go wrong, I have the EPIRB, I have the satellite phone where I can make a call no matter how far offshore I am, and I could call for help, and I could call my family to let them know. Now, the next thing on the checklist, which really goes without saying, is to make sure that all of your electronics are in good working order. Now, I'm on the boat a lot, so it's very easy for me to be able to identify versus somebody who would be a recreational angler who would go out on the weekend or maybe every other weekend, once a month, if their electronics were not working properly. But I would recommend that you turn them on, give them a quick inspection before you go out on the boat, just to make sure that they're working properly. Most boaters cannot navigate on paper charts or navigating relying on solely their compass bearing. So this could be a very scary situation if you're fishing offshore, your electronics were to go out, and now you have to resort to navigating by a compass or even a paper chart, and you're not familiar with that type of navigation. Could be very, very scary. And I would tell you, when you're out on the boat and you're doing just a quick inspection on the electronics, or as you're out on the boat and you start seeing that something isn't working the way that it should, I would highly recommend that you get that checked and fixed, because it's definitely not going to get better over time. It's only going to get progressively worse, or it could immediately get worse and you lose all of your electronics. Now, the next thing that I carry is it's called a chart tube with all the paper charts for the areas that I fish in. Now, this is a requirement for commercial charter vessels, but not a requirement for recreational vessels. Now, if you're unfamiliar on how to navigate on a paper chart, you would have no need for it. But I would highly recommend that you still get those charts, keep them in a binder, your backpack, throw it on the boat, because even if all of your electronics went out and you had no idea how to navigate on a paper chart, you essentially have a map of the area that you're at, which is going to give you some sense of direction on the path that you need to go to get back home. The next item that I have on the list is the boat keys. And I know this sounds like a common sense thing, but if you're not going out on the boat consistently and have a solid routine of paperwork, emergency flares, boat keys, you are going to leave something behind. It's going to happen. There's nothing worse than traveling to go out on a weekend to a fishing destination. You get there, you're putting your boat in the water, and you realize that you forgot your boat keys at home. Now, I know that this sounds crazy, and everybody that's watching it is going to think that'll never happen to me, but I'm going to tell you a true story. I drove from here all the way to Key West to go fishing with a friend of mine on his boat. We got the boat, we put gas in it, put it in the water, couldn't find the boat keys. Had to take the boat back out to go back to his house, and he struggled to find the boat keys at his house. So having a good plan will prevent all of this. The next item on the list are the marine grade fire extinguishers for your boat. Now, we leave our fire extinguishers on the boat, like I'm sure every boater does. But the one thing that you have to check on the fire extinguishers is you have to check them to make sure that they're still good. Now, to complete this check, all you have to do is look at the little clear dial that the fire extinguisher has and make sure that the needle is in the green, indicating that they're good or that they're full. Now, having a fire on the boat is probably the worst thing that can ever happen to you, I would say, other than probably sinking. But if you ever have a fire on the boat, this is why we check our fire extinguishers, because God forbid you have a fire on the boat, you go to use your fire extinguisher and the fire extinguisher is no good and doesn't work. Then we go to the throw ring. So all vessels are required to have a throwable device. So we leave ours on the boat at all times, and then we have it connected to 500 feet of rope. Now, for commercial vessels, it's a requirement that the throwable device is attached to rope, which is attached to the boat. And this is so that if somebody were to fall in the water, you can throw them the device and you can retrieve and pull that person back to the boat and get them on the boat. Now, this isn't a requirement for recreational vessels, but again, here's another thing that I think I would highly recommend that you have some rope, you have it attached to the boat. And I'm going to give you this scenario. Imagine if you were anchored and you're bottom fishing and somebody were to fall into the water. Now you have a person in the water, current, waves. It's going to take you time to be able to pull that anchor to be able to circle back to go get that person. So if you just throw them the throwable device, they have the throwable device, you have no way of being able to retrieve that person back to the boat. So in the time that it takes you to pull up the anchor, hopefully it's a calm day that your eyesight can see very well, but when it's very rough, the person is going down and up in the waves, it becomes very difficult to be able to locate and retrieve a person in the water in those conditions. So you could avoid all of that. Put some line on it, you could throw the device out, they could get it, and you can pull that person back to the boat. Now the next thing that's on the list that we always check is to make sure that our batteries are fully charged. So on our boat, we have an onboard charger. It's very easy. I plug it in on an extension cord to the house overnight. By the time I wake up in the morning, all the batteries are charged. Even if I'm going out on back-to-back days, I get in, I plug it in, and that battery charger will charge all of our batteries while we're asleep. And then it has an indicator to let you know that every battery, we have 4 batteries on our boat, but that every battery is fully charged, and you can see the indicator with the green lights. Now, the next thing that I have on the checklist is to have life vests for all the occupants that are coming on the boat. Now, the reason why I have this on the checklist is a lot of guys leave all the life jackets on the boat all the time, and then those life jackets get moldy, they get dirty, they smell nasty. So I don't like to do that. We take our life jackets off every time, and I have it on the list. So if I'm going out tomorrow and it's myself and 3 other people, I need to bring 4 life vests. If it's myself and 6 customers, I'm bringing 7 life vests. Whatever the number of people that's going to be on the boat, I grab the life vest, I do a quick inspection of the life vest, make sure that the reflective tape is in good working order and that all the life jackets are not torn, they're not ripped, and then I place them on the boat. Now for commercial vessels, we're required to make sure that the life jackets have a whistle and a light on them. Now this is not a requirement for the recreational vessels yet, but again, here's another item that I think is a really good safety precaution to have, even if you're a recreational angler or boater, to have on your life vest as well. The reason for this is just imagine if you're in non-daylight hours. Even if you're a boater, fisherman, angler, and you never go out or come back during non-daylight hours, what if you were caught in an emergency? Something happened that delayed you and now you're coming back in non-daylight hours, or you're out there and God forbid a person were to fall into the water. Even if they have their life jacket on, it becomes nearly impossible to find somebody in the pitch darkness in the ocean at night. So if that person had a light on their life vest and a whistle, you could look for the light and you could listen to the whistle, the audible whistle sounds, to help you identify where the light source is coming from or the sound source, and you'll be able to retrieve that person. Now, when you go this route and you put the whistle and you put the light, these lights are also going to have an expiration date. So now you've got boat registration, fishing license expiration date, all of your flares have different expiration dates. Now you have an expiration date on this light as well. And don't worry, we're going to get to that part later on in the video, and I'm going to show you how to add all of these things to your Excel-based tracker that we're going to make, and then you can make it yourself, and you'll never be able to miss a single one of these expiration dates. The next thing would be to ensure that the boat has adequate fuel for the trip. Now for me, I always run, every time I go out on the boat, I'm running with a full tank of gas. I go far, I'm fishing far offshore, and I could probably do it with half a tank of gas and get back and have enough. But I never want to limit myself with fuel. There's been many times where I've had to run in the opposite direction of where I need to get back home because there's a storm coming. And so you never know how much fuel you're going to need and what's going to arise when you're out in the ocean. The last thing that you want to do is run out of fuel. Next, I check the oil level of each motor to ensure that they're at the adequate level. Then I would tell you to ensure that you have enough dock lines on the boat. Now I know that this may sound like it's another common sense thing, but you have no idea. I see so many boats at the marina that are docking that have no dock lines and they just have people holding onto the poles, or they might have one dock line. And while one dock line might be okay, sometimes if you're in a high wind or high current situation, the tide's coming in or out, it's going to be pretty hard to dock that boat and keep it in place with only one dock line. So make sure you have adequate dock lines, leave them on the boat, check them periodically. If you see their lines are getting frayed, just go ahead and replace them. Then I would tell you to ensure that you have an anchor, which is the right size for your boat, with sufficient rope to that anchor. Again, even if you are a boater who doesn't ever plan on anchoring to fish or anchoring for any reason, there could be so many reasons that come up on why you would need to anchor. And now if you want to learn how to anchor, I have a video that I have on our Boating 101 playlist. We walk you through all of the steps and how to properly anchor. But in that video, we cover you could have engine failure, there could be a storm that you don't feel comfortable navigating in or navigating through that you might want to anchor. There's a bunch of reasons why you might want to anchor. And so anytime that you go out on the boat, you have to make sure that you have an anchor with sufficient rope to anchor where you're going to be navigating at. The next item that I would tell you that goes hand in hand with the anchor is your anchor ball. Make sure you have the anchor ball. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the anchor ball, what this is a poly ball that is used with a ring to pull up your anchor and retrieve the anchor. Now, we also have a video, and I'll drop the thumbnail here so you can see it, but we walk you through the steps of how to easily and effortlessly retrieve your anchor utilizing the anchor ball. Next, I check the bilge by opening the hatches and smelling to ensure I don't smell any fuel vapors inside of the bilge. Now, when you do this check and you open your hatch, just a quick smell. If you smell any vapor, any fuel vapor at all in your bilge, this could be extremely dangerous because it could mean a leak somewhere in your fuel system where those vapors are coming out, or actual fuel, and it's leaking into your bilge. One little spark will be like a bomb was detonated. So if you ever smell that, do not go out on the boat. And it's something that I would check every single time that I go out on the boat. The next thing that I check is the bilge pumps. So bilge pumps work two different ways on the boat. Either manually by turning on the switches on your dash to activate the bilge pumps, or they work automatically when the float that they have inside, the water level rises, triggers the switch, and then the bilge pumps turn on. So what I would tell you to do, it's happened to me on our boat, is one of those two could fail. Your switch could be bad, your fuse could be bad, or the float on the actual bilge pump will go bad. So we check it two ways. We turn on the switch on the dash, and then I go and I listen to make sure that it's on. I turn the switch off. I take the float with my hand and I raise it up to make sure that the pump turns on. And I do this for every bilge pump to know that the automatic switch will turn it on and that the manual on the dash will also activate the bilge pump. Now, guys, I would tell you under no circumstance would I ever, do not take the boat out. If that bilge pump is not working, you have no idea what can happen when you're out in the ocean. And the last thing you want to do is be on a boat that you cannot turn on the bilge pump to activate and pump water out of it. So if that pump doesn't turn on automatically and with the switch, I would cancel that fishing trip for that day or that boating trip for that day and get that fixed before you go out on the boat. Then I complete a visual inspection of the steering system, and this is really to ensure I don't see any oil leaks in the steering system. If you see any oil around your steering system, an oil leak, what the oil leak will do, it's going to prevent you from being able to steer and control your boat. Then I check the navigation lights, and navigation lights are the red and green lights on the vessel which indicate to other vessels the direction that you are traveling in. And then I check the all-round white light, and this is the light that's mounted on the roof of the boat that has a 360-degree view to make sure that all three of them are operational. Now, just like we talked about before, this is critical that you check this even if you're leaving during daylight hours, you plan on coming back during daylight hours, you're never out on the boat when it's dark outside. And I would tell you this is important that you check because, again, you never know what can happen causing you to be delayed, or you could get in a situation where you have a storm, you have fog, anything that restricts visibility, and you need to turn those lights on. If these lights are inoperable, then what's going to happen is you could create a serious accident because other vessels won't be able to identify your vessel and the direction that you're navigating without that red and green light and the all-round white light on the roof of the boat. And then the last thing that I do is I finish with a visual inspection of the motors. I check the lower units. I check the propellers, checking that nut in the middle to make sure that it's tight, it doesn't look loose. I check the motor mounts to ensure that nothing looks damaged. I check all of the bolts, lower unit, everything that's associated with the motors in the back on the transom, really to make sure that they're all in place, they're tightened, and they're secure. So now, after all of this, I've gone through my entire pre-trip safety checklist, and I feel confident that everything on the list is in good working order and I'm ready to go fishing. Now, we all know that things can break while you're out on the water, and this is actually a very common thing that happens just like in your car. Something breaks when you're using it, things break on the boat when you're out on the water. And this is why I do a post-trip safety inspection to check all the safety items just to make sure that something did not become inoperable while I was out on the boat. Now, I do this because I really can't have any downtime with the boat, right? So when I come back, I check everything just to make sure that if anything that has safety related is now inoperable, I can fix it immediately before I go out on the boat the next trip. Now, even if you're not a commercial fisherman or a charter captain, I think this is a really good best practice that you can also do, because things are going to break when you're out on the boat and you might not realize that it broke unless you're using it or needed it. That you check it, and then you'll be able to identify and say, hey, red running light, navigation light's not working on the port side. I need to go ahead and buy a new bulb and put it in there, or troubleshoot and see why it's not working, rather than waiting and not having this process. And you're going to go out fishing, you do your safety checklist, and one of your navigation lights isn't working. Now, this one is a lot quicker for me to complete because I do a visual inspection on everything that I did in the pre-trip inspection. So I check the navigation lights, the all-round white light, I check the bilge pumps to make sure that they're working, I check the fire extinguishers, and I go ahead and I smell again inside of the bilge area just to make sure that I don't smell any fuel vapor in there as well. Then also, if you're out on the boat and something were to come up, I do the same thing. I make a note of it. If something, one of my GPSs isn't working, the screen is flickering, anything else that would go wrong, I go ahead and note that. And after the post-trip inspection, I know that I have to also fix that before I go back out on the boat as well. So really what you're trying to identify here is you're really trying to identify all of your safety related items and make sure that something did not become inoperable while you were out on the water, so you can identify it and get it repaired before the next time that you go out on the boat. Now, I know that that was a lot of information, and maybe some of the things might not pertain to you and your boat and your needs, but I would tell you, watch it again, write all of these things down, and it's gonna enable you to create your own safety checklist tailored to your boat and your needs. So now that we covered all the items on the checklist, I want to go ahead and jump into that Excel spreadsheet and show you how you could create this spreadsheet to track all of your expiration dates for all of your flares, your paperwork, and your license. Remember, having this system in place can ensure you never miss an expiration date or a deadline to renew license or any of your paperwork, your registration, and it's going to ensure that everything is up to date. So this is the Excel spreadsheet that I have for myself. Now, this won't work for you because everyone will have different things that you're obviously going to want to track, but this format will ensure that really nothing gets expired or you miss anything. So the spreadsheet works by me entering in the expiration dates that I want to track for each item. And then I have a formula which updates with today's date every single day. Then it calculates how many days I have left before that item expires. Then what I do is I write down what this item is so that I know what I have to replace or renew. And again, I have a lot of things on this list, so that's why I write these notes for myself. And then I write down the frequency that the item has to be replaced or renewed, and then in the last column I put where I need to go to renew or replace it. This can be very useful for online renewals because you could actually insert the URL, and then when you need to renew the item, the only thing you have to do is click on that URL that you placed or the link to the website that you need to go or the site that you need to go to renew it. And this is going to make it very easy for you because you're going to have everything in one location. You're not going to remember every year the exact website that you have to go to renew something. So you're going to copy and paste the link there. It needs to be renewed. You click the link and it takes you right to where you need to go. So now that you know how it works, let's go ahead and create one from scratch so that you know how to create the formulas, paste the URLs, and tailor this spreadsheet to your needs.
All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and open up your Microsoft Excel, and it's going to look like this. Oh, let me click here on the home button. So it'll look like this when you open it up, and you want to go ahead and start labeling. I have in my first column, I have different categories, and I color code them just because I have so many things. You could do that if you want. If you want, we could leave it out. I'm sure your list might be smaller than mine. So we'll go ahead and we'll just put today's date. Now I'm going to show you here, you see how this now crosses over. You could make this cell bigger. And if you wanted to just wrap the text, you come up here to this box right here, this button I should say, that says wrap text. And if you press that button, now it's going to make it fit. I spelled it wrong. It's going to make it fit in one cell. So now you can see today's date. We're going to go ahead and put here expiration date. And then we'll put days left. Now, this is where the really cool part is. So we're going to go ahead and put here, I don't know, we'll go ahead and put November 1st, 2024. We'll go ahead and put on this one December 20th, 2025. Whoop. 2025. And what you'll do is you're going to go ahead and look at the items that you have the expiration date on and just plug them in. We'll go ahead and put these two just for the sake of the training exercise. We'll go ahead and let's keep going across, and we'll put, what is the item? We'll put task item. And then we're going to go ahead and make this a little bit longer so you could write in here. I like to put frequency of when this has to be updated, just so that I know if I have to do this thing every year, every 6 months, on the expiration date. And you can just write whatever you want. This is really to help you know in this column when this item has to be done. And then here I put source. This is just where do I go to renew or buy that item again. Some of it could be on a website, some of it could be in a store. That way I know I have a very long list to say, okay, this item I have to go here. Some of these things, guys, I replace every few years, and so then it's going to be difficult for me to remember 4 years from now, 3 years from now, where I have to go to replace or renew this item. So that's why I'll write myself a little note here to say, I bought it at such and such place. So we'll go ahead and put here, for the first item, we'll put parachute flares. Okay. This next item here, we will put smoke flares. The other thing that I do too is I put here in mine, I will put in parentheses how many I have, so that I remember, hey, I need to buy this many, which it helps me so I don't have to go back to the safety bag, open it, and say how many do I have in there. I just know right here that this is what I need to buy. So we'll go ahead and do these two items. We'll go ahead and say, fishing license. And we'll say this expires 8/1/2025. So here, this is the easy part. You're going to come here and you're going to put in your expiration dates of all the items that you want to track. And you're going to come here and you're going to put in all of those items. So the first time you do this, it's going to take you a little bit to write it all down. Then here is where this gets really cool. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll do it slow and I'll put it up in the editor so you can see what I'm doing, the formula. But you're going to put equals, open parentheses, I don't know if it's open parentheses, I think it's today, yeah, today, open parentheses, close parentheses. Okay, So equals today, open parentheses, close parentheses, and I'll make it pop up here if this is hard to see on your screen. And when you hit enter, it automatically puts today's date here. The really cool thing about this is that you open this up tomorrow and it'll say the 24th. Whatever day you open the file, this date keeps changing. So you don't have to keep updating the date every single time for all of this to work. So right now we've only got 3 items, so we're gonna drag that down. And all it does is just keep bringing the same formula. If you look right here, it just brings the formula down to the next cell. Then here, we're gonna figure out how many days do we have left before this expires. We're gonna put equals, and I'll go slow again. But you want to take and say we want to subtract this minus this. So the expiration date minus today's date. When you hit enter, this is now going to tell you, I just put it here in the center. If you want to align it to the left, the center, or the right, you can do that here. But what this tells you now is that you have 70 days left before this task is over. Then if you want, you don't have to retype it. All we're going to do is just drag that down to the 3, and now you can see how many days you have left in that right there. Now, if the parachute flares, you have to order it, you know, I would say here I would put on expiration date, just so that I know that these are going to be every time, and this will be the same on expiration date. Here I'll put annual, right? So that I know, hey, these two I have to do on the expiration date every time that they expire. And this will last longer than a year, but whenever the expiration date is, I need to go ahead and repurchase these again. And then when I get my 3 parachute flares that come in, I'm going to take the 3 new ones. I'm going to go to my safety bag. I'm going to take the 3 old ones out. I'm going to put the new ones in. Then I'm going to look at the date of the new ones, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to update this date. And this date is going to be, you know, it's usually lasts for a couple of years. We'll say that it goes in 2027. Boom. And now this tells you how many more days you have left before this expires. Now, the parachute flares here is one where I had a difficult time finding them for myself because it's a requirement for commercial vessels with a good date. So I went to places and the expiration date was very close, and these are very expensive. So I actually found a place up in the Northeast in Connecticut that sells them. So what I did, so I wouldn't forget, is I put the URL to that site there. And now, just for the purposes of this training, I'm going to go ahead and just use my regular website. But let's say you found them, this is the place where you order them from, or the website where you renew your fishing license, or whatever it is that you have to go to a website to do. You're going to want to go ahead and click, highlight the URL at the top of the page, and just press Control-C. And I'll put that here, I'll pop it up in the editor so you can see it. And what it does is it copies the URL to the page. And you're going to come here and you're just going to paste it by doing Control-V. And now you've pasted it right there. Now, you can see that this is not a clickable link, but all you have to do is just double click into it and you click off of it, and now this is a clickable link. And if you were to click this, it's automatically going to open up the page for you. Okay, now let's say that for the second item here, the smoke flares, you also ordered them on this page, but you had to go to a different one. So now you say, oh man, on this site I clicked 3 different things to get there. Same thing. All you're going to do is highlight the URL at the top, Control-C. You're going to come back to your Excel spreadsheet and do Control-V. And if you just double click in it and click out of it, you can now see that this is a clickable link. And when you press it, it takes you to that page. And this is our apparel page. If anybody wants to shop some apparel, we have a bunch of cool shirts right here, all SPF. Really good fishing shirts that you could purchase from us. But going back to the training, that is how you paste the URL. Now, when you have 30, 40 things on this page here that you need to remember, these links really help you out a lot because you programmed it there when you renewed it, or what, you know, when you found where to buy it, and you just click on it, it takes you right back to it. And if you have to go somewhere and you say, hey, local, like for me, I have to go to the tax collector downtown, and this is for my FWC, for my charter one, my charter fishing license. I have to show proof that I have my Coast Guard credentials, right? So you pass the Coast Guard credentials, you're gonna get the red license that looks like a passport book. So every year I have to go to the tax collector's office where I can show, verify it's still valid, I have it, and then they, you know, you pay and they issue you out the new one. So this is very simple right here, guys. If you want to change the color, you can just highlight this. You could come here and you could pick any color that you want. You know, we'll go ahead and pick blue. You want to change the letters to white. Okay, so now you have your little header here. You have all the things here. The other thing that I'm going to show you, because I think that this will really help you out a lot, right here is 3 things. As you start putting things on here, because it's going to become very useful, you're going to put on here when you want to do motor service, when you want to do trailer maintenance. I mean, you're going to start adding things on here, everything that has to do with the boat. And this is going to be your one-stop shop to be able to see everything. This could get, you know, you got to look at a bunch of numbers here. So what I like to do is that I put these numbers so that when I'm, you know, hey, I'm 30 days or less, this is going to turn yellow for me. And then obviously if it goes into the negative, it turns red. So you know, hey, this is already expired. You should never see a red on there. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and change this one here so that you, let's go ahead and pick 9/15/2024, something that we have less than 30 days. So you can see it right here. And on this one, I'm going to go ahead and put 8/22/2024 so you see it. So now this is -1. So what you want to do is highlight. You'll highlight everything that you have in here. Once you fill everything out, you're going to highlight all the items that you have. And let's say that you start this list out and you have 3 things right here, right now. You don't have to redo this step. You could grab this same box and just slide it down, and all of the elements that are associated with it are going to go with it. And I'll show you that in a second, but we're going to go ahead and highlight this. We're going to come up here to conditional formatting. We're going to tell this thing that we want to highlight cells if it is less than 31. And we're going to highlight those with yellow. Okay? Then we're going to come back up here and say we want to highlight cells that are less than 0. And we're going to highlight those in red. And we're going to hit OK. Now you could see how this item here, that the expiration date is September 15th, it's got 23 days left. And this item here that we changed the expiration date to has 1 day left. So now let's say you add something else on here. All you have to do is drag this down. Today's date goes here. You plug in the new expiration date. We're going to go ahead and put another one that's less than 30 days. So you can see, let's go ahead and put 9/16/2024. And we're going to take this and we just drag it down. You see how when you come over the box on the right-hand corner is a little square. When you put the cursor over it, you get these little crosshairs. You left click, hold it, and drag it down. And you see now the formula goes with it. Okay, on the conditional formatting goes with it. You update this now, and it is now 9/16/2025. And now it tells you you got 389 days on that item. You could write down, you know, whatever it is here that you want to put. You know, on expiration date. And let's say that these, you bought it at West Marine, which is a big boating and fishing supply store that we have here in Florida. And I think it extends out of Florida, but it's huge here in Florida. But guys, that's how you do it. When you're done, obviously you're going to click File, Save As, save it on the path that you want. And then you can have all the things right here that you want to add to this. and just keep dragging down the formula for today's date, keep dragging down the formula for how many days you have left, and you keep inserting all of your expiration dates, and you keep writing everything out here, and you have all the items that you need to track will be in one location to ensure that you never miss an expiration date, a renewal date for a license, and all of your paperwork and safety equipment will be up to date.
So now you have a great process to tailor to your individual needs to help you prevent and even eliminate accidents on your boat. And you have a great way to create an Excel-based spreadsheet to help you track all of those deadlines and expiration dates to ensure that you never have anything that's expired or you miss a renewal date for any of the items on the boat. If you want to check out more helpful boating 101 tips, check out this playlist next.